Good morning to you, Amos. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Kate. Thanks for having me.
I just wondered your first reaction upon seeing the video.
I think I was appalled and sickened by the video. It's not a huge surprise given we know what was happening, but the imagery of it was pretty powerful and completely at odds with what the rest of the country and certainly we as bereaved families and our loved ones were going through at the time.
And what do you make of the behaviour displayed by those Conservative Party HQ workers during the video? There was laughing, there was lots of chatter, there were two people twirling around, dancing, crashing into a buffet table. There were alcoholic drinks in hand. What do you make of the behaviour that you see?
It's like a parallel universe, and to be honest, it's difficult to comprehend how they can act in such a carefree manner, given what the rest of the country was going through. You know, my grandma died in April 2020 in a care home. She moved in for a 3-week period, supposed to see how it went, and unfortunately, she caught COVID soon afterwards and passed away. But we couldn't see her, we couldn't visit her. There were no video call facilities. We had telephone calls, harrowing telephone calls, only when we could actually get through to her on the phone and someone could take the phone to her or they answered the phone. And then we had a Zoom funeral in which was interrupted by someone drinking tea, eating crisps and shouting at their kids. And so the camera was moving from my grandma's coffin to this person. My mum caught COVID shortly after the time this party took place. She was taken into hospital after a week of paramedics coming out to her on 3 occasions. She departed in the ambulance. We couldn't see her. When she left in the ambulance, she said she'd been getting her papers ready, which we knew meant her financial affairs. We were sure she was going to die, but we couldn't see her. You know, the paramedics and even the staff at the hospital weren't protected properly. They were wearing flimsy aprons and surgical masks. They were putting themselves at risk. And we saw my mum next 3 months afterwards I saw her on her 70th birthday. I took her a cake. We had a socially distanced walk outside. So to think of these people who were, celebrating, just oblivious to what was going on around them and putting other people's lives in danger, which is, one of the worst aspects of this, because we all complied with the rules. And I can't say that I don't have pangs of guilt for not being able to see my grandmother, pangs of guilt for not being with my mother at a time we thought that she was going to die. And, we wanted to do it. And I don't regret doing it because lives were at stake. People were dying. And at the same time they were partying, the messages going out in the press conferences were socially distance and keep social contact to a minimum. So as I say, it's very, very difficult to comprehend and it's maddening.
The two people danced past a sign that said, "Keep your distance," Amos. They were flouting the rules in front of their own rules or their party's own rules in terms of Boris Johnson. Thank you for sharing some of that account. 3 months it took you to be able to visit your mum. You've lost your grandmum. You experienced her Zoom funeral, and then you're preparing to lose your mum, really, as she's hospitalised with COVID. The Met Police didn't take any action based on a photograph of this event. That's all they had to go on before we've seen this video. They couldn't prove to the extent needed that rules had been broken. They took testimony from people attending the party. What does this make you think then of those people who gave testimony to the Metropolitan Police and it appears were not completely truthful? Because if they were, surely there would have been some sort of penalties.
Well, that's difficult to understand as well. Whether or not there was video, there were multiple people gathering. This couldn't have been for work purposes, and there were photos of the incident at the time. So quite why the Met Police didn't decide there was enough to bring action, we don't know. And of course, we don't know. They haven't given an explanation. But it just seems appalling that these people, and we're here today that there's likely to be some action, but there should have been some criminal action, and there should have been some consequences in terms of their employment, in my view.
Let's just talk about the COVID inquiry. It enters into its second week, or this stage does. What have you made of what you've heard? And from your point of view, what's the aim? What do you most want to get out of what you hear during the COVID inquiry?
I think the aim for most bereaved families is for our experiences to be learnt from, for lessons to be learned, so that people aren't put in the position that we were put in unnecessarily. Their loved ones weren't lost; they weren't mourning them in the way that we were mourning them. So far, there has been some pretty powerful evidence. It's very difficult to see how anyone could describe the UK's position going into the pandemic as prepared. Even in the first week of evidence, we've heard about the impact on the cuts of social care from Professor Marmot. Really powerful evidence about the state of the NHS and social care going into the pandemic. And then the civil contingencies, the lack of preparation, the lack of any learning from previous exercises in the UK that warned about the impact it was likely to have on social care and the NHS. And of course, the way that other countries learned from previous illnesses like SARS and MERS.
Yeah.
So we're only into the first week, and it's already apparent
Yeah.
that we're in a poor position.
Are you happy so far, Amos, with the platform that's been given to organisations like the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice group, basically bereaved families like you? Are you happy so far with what you've heard, and that you will get enough of a platform to be able to put your point across?
We're not wholly satisfied yet. I mean, we're a group of over 6,500 people. 20 family members put themselves forward as potential witnesses for Module 1. And in the event that one of them is being called. And so we feel there is a parallel process, the Every Story Matters, for basically accounts to be taken, condensed into a report and given, but they're going to be anonymized and probably sanitized. We would rather have more experiences of people who went through this at the time, so that lessons can truly be learned, so that we really feel like we're part of the process. So we feel that really needs to be happened, as well as to memorialise them. And that's the way it ordinarily in previous inquiries and many inquests, evidence is taken from bereaved families, whether it's by way of a pen portrait, a witness statement, or them giving evidence themselves. And so to that extent, we don't feel like we have been front and centre as we were told we would be prior to the inquiry.